Today's Wednesday, February 2nd, Groundhog Day. Happy Groundhog Day. Supposedly, I guess, Punxsutawney Phil did see his shadow, so went back into hiding for 6 more weeks. So we got, according to that myth, we have 6 weeks of winter, but I don't know how often Punxsutawney Phil is right and how often he's wrong, but either way, we're in Acts chapter 7 today, and it's really the story of Stephen and his going through his life, his trial, and he is obviously, if you've read it, and if you haven't, I would encourage you to stop, but he's very bold to the high priest and to his court, and really ties Jesus into many of the most famous patriarchs, beginning with Abraham and the covenant God made with Abraham to go, and that he would show him a place, and the promise of being a blessing. And we see him tied then to Isaac and Jacob, and then Joseph, and the Israelites coming to Egypt. And it says in verse 17, they increased and multiplied. So the people aspect of the covenant was fulfilled through the Joseph time. And we go into Moses, and a lot here about Moses. And the important verse, I think, is verse 32, when Moses said to the Israelites, God will raise up for you a prophet like me. And, I think Stephen is stressing that Jesus is who Moses talked about. It just briefly talks about Joshua, and then David and Solomon. And Stephen's most confrontational statement is in verse 51 and following. And he says, you stiff-necked people, uncircumcised in heart and ears, you always resist the Holy Spirit, as your fathers did, so do you. Which of the prophets did your father not persecute? And they killed those who announced beforehand the coming of the righteous one, whom you now have betrayed and murdered. You who received the law as delivered by angels and did not keep it. So an obvious confrontational statement to the high priest and to his court, and they decide, become enraged, and they decide to kill Stephen by stoning. And we see in verse 58, and at the feet, and laid the garments at the feet of a young man named Saul. So this Saul that we're going to see throughout most of the rest of Acts gets brought into the picture intentionally here at the end of chapter 7, and looked at as, they laid the garments at the feet of a young man named Saul. So obviously Saul is holding a position of high importance amongst the high court, the high priests, and Stephen dies. He calls out to God, says, "Don't hold this," and against the people, it says, "Lord, receive my spirit." And when he says this, he falls asleep and dies. So just a great chapter showing the boldness of Stephen, the unabashed faith that Stephen has as well, and because of that is martyred, but is a great example to each one of us on being bold for the kingdom, and the importance of knowing history, biblical history, because he takes Jesus all the way back to Abraham. So Have a great day. We're going to get into more about Saul tomorrow and following chapter 8. And then we will see chapter 9, Saul's conversion. So enjoy your day. Stay warm out there. Another bitterly cold day. And I just pray God speaks to you through his word. If you have anything that you're learning through this, I'd love you to share it in the comments. And we'll see you on here tomorrow. God bless you.